Okay, so this would be a feedback slash critique for coolcalmsam. I know that profile pic. Serial experiments lane. I like the opening. So a lot of people already responded to you, and I don't much I don't have much else to add to what they already said. Right. A lot of Paul is going to. I don't think I've given you feedback before. In case you haven't watched any previous videos, TLDR, I'm a nerd who likes Tekken, and I like Paul. He's really fun, right? And he's fucking busted in this game, which is a godsend because holy shit, he sucks in older games. He's like fine in tag too. Anyway, the point being is that I'm by no means a professional at this game, right? I'm just someone who likes Tekken, I like Paul, and I like helping people out. So that being said, my feedback is coming from a perspective of from my experiences playing Paul, from my experiences watching a lot of Paul gameplay, and just fighting Paul, right? And in Tekken in general, here are things that I think you can be doing to sort of improve your overall gameplay, right? It is by no means gospel, and at the end of the day, it's just food for thought, right? Make of it what you will, take it with a grain of salt, but take into consideration, you do you, right? So right here, congratulations, you got your opponent to the wall, and now Paul goes from S tier to SS plus tier or some shit, right? This right here, first off, is just don't ever use this string in neutral, the 3-2 that you're about to do. It doesn't matter what rank the person is, it doesn't matter. They could be initiate or whatever, like fucking Dan rank, right? You never know. Paul is the most popular character in the game, supposedly, and regardless, you'll run into people all the time that just know that matchup and they've seen it a million times and they know there's nothing else to fear after it, so they will duck and launch you instantly, right? There is no mid follow up. The back sway cancel does not come out fast enough to save you, right? There's no reason. 3-2, 3 by itself is fine, right? You can use 3 as like a mid-range like fast mid poke, just kind of like press your opponent, see what they like to do after, etc. Right? 3-2 is only for combos. That's it. You would never use the string outside of neutral. Maybe in some punish situations, but that's up to you. Are there going to be people who just block this and you get, easy mode backswing mix-ups? Yes. I'm not saying that there aren't people who fall for this stuff. All I'm saying is you will fight stronger people, and by the point you do, right, it'll be too late. This move will be ingrained into your muscle memory. So as soon as you can, try to make sure you don't make it a habit of using that move. Once in a blue moon, you can't help it. You just kind of autopilot muscle memory, whatever, that's fine. But you want to make sure that using 3-2 in the neutral does not become a habit. Otherwise, it's going to be really annoying to break it later on, right? But right here, this is where you start using a lot of your mids and some of your lows, like sidestep 3 because of the counter hit, and some of your highs, namely core circle back 4, right? So let's see if I can get a good. Your opponent's back is to the wall. Right here, you just do sides or core circle back 2. I think you're too far and you won't get like a clean wall split, but you'll get the knockdown, which is just as fine, right? You want to knock your opponent down, make them freak out, and then they'll likely tech roll, at which point you can do up back 2 and stuff like that. But this right here, this is where you start using all of your safe big ass mids and power moves like core circle back 4, core circle back 2, force your opponent into unfavorable situations. They start sidestepping, core circle back 4 will hit them. They start just ducking, core circle back 2 will get them, right? If they just stand block and they're just not, you're maintaining safety, but they're not necessarily cracking under the pressure, start chipping in with some lows. Do like back 4, do sidestep 3, etc. You want to be a little bit closer to the wall than you are now, because then you can get some actually like really decent wall combos. But right now this is fine. right? And now keep in mind, this will be fine against like defensive opponents. Against an aggressive opponent, you just hang back, dash in, like walk forward slightly, but you can just hang back. And then when the opponent whiffs a button or they try to start stepping, that's when you start whipping out like back 1-2 or course to go back 4 again, right? So look at the context of the situation first. The context is, okay, my opponent's back is to the wall. And then take into account stuff like other contexts, like what type of opponent am I facing? Are they aggressive? Are they passive? Are they defensive? Etc. 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 So this is some stuff to be considering, right? So like right here, this you should have just start slamming course to go back to. The move is safe, and even though it kills your turn at -8, there's so much pushback it doesn't really matter. There's no you can't necessarily continue to be greedy with your turn, and in some situations you can, but you don't have to worry about, oh no, they get a mix-up opportunity. They're usually too far to worry about that, right? And that's just a habit that you want to be working on in general, right? Where you could be death fisting outside of like you got the hardest fucking read and you know for a fact that your opponent's gonna duck here, right? 9 times out of 10 where you could have death fisted, you could have served yourself better by, I'm talking about in neutral, right? You could have just saved yourself a lot of headaches and done course to go back to. You're sacrificing some damage, but the safety cannot be understated, right? Outside of a punish situation, constantly putting yourself at a minus frame situation, even if the opponent blocks it and doesn't punish, that doesn't matter. You're putting yourself at -16. There's very little you can do outside of just gimmicks, right? And it's just not something you want to be doing. So like this whole setup right here, right? So let's analyze that real quick. You got the jabs, cool. Right here, this is where you want to start implementing some mix-ups, right? It's always a toss-up. Demo Man's a shit show. I think you can do Demo Man right here, and I think it'll have been fine. I don't, even if it doesn't clean, and I'm sure this Brian was just going to be mashing buttons, and you would have been fine. Another thing to consider is that this is where you want to start using your throws, right? You have the frame advantage, you have a mix-up opportunity, and the opponent is just kind of stand blocking. If you use a move, that's, Paul up close doesn't have a lot of fast up close mid checks. Down 1 and down forward 1 are there, and in this situation where you have the advantage, they're fine. But they're going to typically end your turn, or they're going to force you to be back on the defense, right? So in this situation, if you want to keep up your pressure, doing something like forward 1+2 is a good idea. It's still kind of slow, but you'll still trade with like anything 14 frames or faster. But it's very likely that you would have been able to, on block or hit, you'll be in a favorable position. Another thing to consider right here is going for a throw. Right? You have the advantage. The opponent's on very low health. They're very likely going to, be mashing a button or something. And throws will beat out any move that they press outside of like a high crush, right? Outside of them just strictly ducking. They're more likely going to be pressing a mid or something, just something of like whatever their power moves are, right? And you'll just throw them out of it because you have such a big head start on them. +6 is huge, right? So this is where you want to be like, all right, let me mix up my opponent by doing a throw, because then in future situations they'll be on the lookout for that, right? They'll be like, fuck, is he gonna throw me? And they'll start flash ducking, and that's when your mids will be able to put in some work. Try to use your throws in situations where the opponent is very passive. They're not throwing out too many buttons, because and they're not backdashing too much. Throws have limited range, and they're kind of, you just want to be careful that you're not like whiffing them or just being too predictable with your timing. But if you sense that like, okay, well, my opponent's being very passive, they're not really pressing too many buttons, they're just kind of standing there, think of them as like pseudo lows, right? You're able to break their guard and get in for some chip damage. Even if the opponent breaks in, now they're going to be on the lookout for it. And it's even, in a lot of people, nobody looks at the hands. Technically, Paul's throw game, he doesn't have a rule-breaking throw, so it's a lot harder for him. I think they're still there. It's not necessarily about let me just, Be a grappler. It's more so, okay, I have a tool that will mentally wear down my opponent and leads to decent rewards. Like down forward 1+2 is a really solid throw, right? Twist and shout, really solid throw. And you want to start adding that to your repertoire, right? You want to start utilizing all your tools in order to put pressure on your opponent, right? So right here, again, throws are going to be very fast, right? So you're not going to have to worry too much about them hitting you out of the throw, especially when you're going into the throw with frame advantage. You do have to be careful of if the opponent is flash ducking. So again, take the context into account. What has your opponent been doing throughout the match? What type of opponent do you think you're facing? This is the very first round, so obviously, unless you already played this guy before, you already have some knowledge, it's going to be difficult, but that's the mindset you want to go in for the future, right? Either future rounds or future opponents, just kind of start to get a feel of like, okay, I think they're an aggressive player, or I think that they won't know what to do in this situation, or I think they'll do X, right? Being able to read your opponent and being able to kind of, form a hypothesis based on the information that you've gained so far throughout the match, or just your experience. It's a skill, right? So you want to practice developing that skill, and if you guess wrong, you guess wrong, right? It happens, but it's important to develop that, because getting a read on your opponent's timings, having a good understanding of when they'll go for X move or situation or tactic, it's very critical to maximizing your effectiveness with Paul, right? Once you're in your opponent's hand, Paul can just do wonders, right? Just being able to counter hit them out of everything, beat them out of everything with down forward 2, etc., etc., etc. So like right here, this is right. You're facing your opponent's just pressing jabs, right? Just duck, right? Or you can also consider sidestepping, right? You're only at -1. You can start sidestepping. Brian, if he starts finishing the string, I think it kind of tracks, but you can also just sidestep block and you should be fine. Other stuff to consider is try to avoid using moves too often, right? Like Paul's got a great suite of panic moves, right? And Brian's got a notoriously shitty jab. At any point, down forward 2, down 1+2, or forward 1+4 would have likely just fucked him up. And you have those options, right? Something else to consider is also just kind of just doing down back 4 or just movement, right? Quick disruption, easy damage, somewhat okay frame situation. It's not advantage, obviously, you're -2, but it's more so, okay, well, I disrupted him, and before he can mount his offense again, let me try to move out of the way, right? So sidestep, start backdashing, etc. Try to create distance from your opponent, and then, apply your keep out tools, right? Brian doesn't exactly have the greatest high crush on a lot of his moves. Like, he has snake edge, but come on, like, if you're backdashing away, it's very unlikely for snake edge to hit you. I think you try to sidestep. Oh, and then another thing to consider is like when he starts finishing the string, right? Just this is. I'm not gonna talk about this too much. This is a matchup situation thing. Those are gonna be everywhere in the early ranks and just in Tekken in general, and you have to make the decision. All right, am I going to lab this stuff out? Lab the string and start practicing. Setting up some sort of what's the word? Some sort of training situations of like Brian doing a bunch of moves and then throwing in that string on repeat and just practicing low parrying on reaction, right? Just kind of preemptively low parrying if he finishes the string. Stuff like that. Not going to harp on it too much. If you want to pursue that, that matchup knowledge, that's up to you. Okay, so you're +6 again. Here's the thing. Your opponent's back is no longer at the wall. So Paul's pushback on his 1-2 is pretty significant, right? So let's see what happens. Even if you didn't get dick jabbed here, right? I don't think it's very likely that your clean hit would have connected. And so that's the issue that you got to be aware of. Do not use Demo Man in the neutral. Do not use it unless your opponent's back is to the wall. Will there be situations where you could just easily demo man and punish the opponent for just standing in your face at range 0? Sure. But utilizing demo man as your primary low is just asking for trouble down the line, right? People are going to be constantly backdashing. People could just be walking backwards a pixel and then the clean hit will mess up. And sometimes, yeah, people won't block the rest of the string. Oh well. But it's again, I'm not saying this as like how do I say this? How dare you use Demo Man? How dare you use one of Paul's most famous moves, right? It's more so, look, in the future, this is going to be a bad habit that will bite you back in the ass hard. It's going to be very difficult to break. So try to avoid that now, right? Sometimes in these situations when I think I went back too far. You get the jabs, you get the jab blocked, right? Instead of committing to a move there, you just backdash, right? Just do a little one jab and then backdash. A lot of Paul and just, again, Tekken in general, you try to always create the most advantageous situation for the least amount of commitment. And a lot of times that's going to be, okay, I did a move, I'm in sort of like an okay frame situation, say like +1 or something. -1 to +1. Committing to a move is very risky. +1 is nothing when it comes to, I want to do a move now, right? Maybe a jab, but just if you keep jabbing, jabbing, it's not going to end well. When it comes to movement, it's fantastic. You can just backdash, sidestep whatever you want. Paul's movement is average. It'll get the job done, right? And you'll be set. So that's another thing to consider, is that sometimes you'll get your one jab in and then you just backdash. And then Brian would have dick jab, and on reaction you could go for like a solid whiff punish, probably just death fist. Or 3-2. Sometimes that'll just be easier. But that's another thing to consider, right? Of just kind of like reducing the amount of times of how often you're going to be pressing certain buttons and how often you rely on, okay, I can either move out of the way or I can press a button. And you pressing that button, it's just not something you always want to be doing. And being able to discern, when do I want to press a button? When do I want to move out of the way? That'll come with experience, but it's important that you practice. It's like, think about it like switching sides, right? Like you play on player 1 side the whole time, and then the moment you switch to player 2 side, you're just floundering, right? People will be like Tekken God Prime on player 1, then you throw them flip sides, and then they're just fucking green ranks. And they're just, initiate or something. If you never utilize the skill or never just sort of practice experimenting with it, you won't build that experience and that knowledge. Hence why I'm trying to stress, like, experiment with movement. So you get familiar with the idea and try to see like what you can and can't do. Nice. Oh, unfortunate. Don't ever press sidestep 1. So here's another thing to consider, is that during sidestep, let's say you want to sidestep but you want to do a jab, or you want to do sidestep but you want to do standing 3 instead of sidestep 3. Paul has a lot of command kills, in the sense of he's in a situation where if he presses a button, like let's say during a sidestep, if you press 3, right, he'll do sidestep 3 because you're in a sidestep. But if you're doing a sidestep and you press 3+4, Paul will do standing 3. Because he does not have a sidestep 3+4, the game just selects the 3 instead, right? You don't get 4, you don't get 3, you don't get sidestep 3, you just get standing 3. And for jabs, if you press sidestep 1, you'll just get or during a sidestep, if you press 1, you'll always get sidestep 1. The move is stupidly slow and pretty funny on hit or on block, but again, stupidly slow. And they're already going to be ducking because a lot of people know about Paul's sidestep 3, right? So you want to instead do sidestep 1+2, and that will give you your one jab, So again, something to practice and keep in mind when you do try and sidestep and utilize that a bit more. Because sidestep 1 will just get you counter hit. Maybe sidestep jab would as well, but yeah. Don't worry, season 5, Brian Hatch Kick will hit grounded because that's all they do. Whoa! That's unfortunate. I mean, fortunate for you, unfortunate for the Brian. Okay, so that's another thing of like your opponent is backdashing and then they're just stand blocking. Like they're just holding back and walking backwards. In these situations, that's when you start doing your lows. Maybe not back four right away because he starts jabbing you, he's gonna jab you out of back four. But doing something like Corsical 4-3, very easy to start chipping in, right? And that's the thing is that you kind of you want to maintain a distance where your Corsical 4-3 will reach. Thankfully, it goes pretty far, so you should be okay. But you can still kind of maintain pressure on your opponent, right? And if your opponent's just stand blocking, you're staying safe, but you're not building up the momentum you need, right? And that's what lows are there for. They're going to punish the opponent for just standing there and just stand blocking all day, and they'll slowly chip away some health, and that chip damage will add up, right? Because Tekken doesn't have the contemporary chip damage, right? Like if you're in a 2D game or some anime fighter or something, or Mortal Kombat or something, and you're blocking all the time, your health will chip away, right? That's your punishment for just standing there and blocking. Tekken doesn't have that, but you have lows, which will achieve a similar result. If your opponent's just standing there and blocking all day, and you chip in with lows, they'll just keep eating them, right? Obviously, you don't want to do it all the time, or where your timing starts to get very stale, right? Because low parries are pretty powerful in this game. You'll just get launched for some decent damage and wall carry. So how do you know? Okay, well, my timing's getting stale, etc., etc. You got to start using the moves and starting to become a bit more familiar with them, right? And start sort of ingraining, like, okay, in this situation, what happens when I do back four? All right, sweet, it worked. Time to, if that situation arises again, do another back four. Or it doesn't work, and you're like, well, shit, maybe I shouldn't do back four there. And you just keep, it's a constant process of trial and error, right? Unfortunate. Nice. Oh, maybe. Oh, well. It's open for the weapon. See, like right there. So that's going to be a thing of like, you get the jab and then you try to go for Demo Man. And it works out because the guy doesn't, know to fully block the string. But in a lot of other situations, it's just going to be a bad habit. The opponent's just going to block the rest of the string. Now you're standing in their face at minus 17. And it's like, okay, I guess. But if you did something like back four, if you did something like Corsical 4-3, you would have achieved either damage and frame advantage with back four, or a little bit of extra damage in a neutral situation, which honestly is pretty fucking solid for everything that low already does. But you also maintain kind of like like you maintain momentum. Like you're able to move around a lot. You're able to just stand and block. You don't have to worry about too many mix-ups coming in because you're not like minus 17 like you would be after Demo Man. Oh, in case that comes up, right? Like let's say you get these situations of like, oh, well, I was actually pretty far away and Demo Man knocked, I got the full string. It's because the opponent's mashing, right? And that is a thing people can do, right? If the opponent likes to mash and you got the distance on them, just do Demo Man. On counter hit, you'll still get the trip and you'll get the full damage and stuff. It can happen. It's still not a good thing to over rely on Demo Man as your primary low, right? There's just too much risk involved for not enough reward, right? Let's compare Hell Sweep and Demo Man, right? Both would seem very similar at the start, right? They're unseeable knockdown lows and some decent damage and stuff and whatever. However, right, without even just getting into the whole clean hit stuff and how, Hell Sweep has a lot of range because you can do it out of wave dash, right? You can extend the range in tracking. let's look at the situations on hit and block, right? And let's assume the clean hit works out. Congratulations, you you knocked your opponent down with Demo Man. You got 40 damage, and now they're super far away, and you just got basically a glorified reset to neutral. Whereas if you get hit, if you get land a hit with Hell Sweep, the opponent's right there in your face, primed on a silver platter, ready to eat another mix-up. And you're playing Kazuya, who just gets buffed every patch because he's the fundamental character, and he's just a 50-50 machine, right? Now, this is not to say like, oh, Paul should be more like Kazuya, or Kazuya should have his Oki nerfed. Although Kazuya should really have his Oki nerfed. Because why the fuck does down back 4 hit grounded? I mean, I guess ours does. I don't know. That's the thing to consider, right? Both lows are death on block, but one has a much more rewarding situation on hit, right? You don't have to worry about a reset to neutral. The moment you land a Hell Sweep, the opponent's in fucking mix-up city. They're in the blender for the rest of the round. And you just keep tossing coins, you keep up the coin flip, and you fucking just kill your opponent. Whereas if you hit Demo Man on a character, they're just knocked super far away, and then it's just like, alright, back to neutral. And some people just forego Demo Man for that reason, right? There's just no point in using the low when it just creates more work for you. Except at the wall, because at the wall you don't have to worry about that, and you just keep putting your opponent in the blender, right? And is that situation something you really want to die for, right? Do you want Demo Man to be blocked? Do you want your, glorified return to neutral and some damage blocked, and then you'll just eat like an 80 damage combo because everybody can do, delayed hop kick combos and shit? Most of the time, no. Again, at the end of the day, like, I still use Demo Man. I don't give a shit. I think the move's just fun. I'm just saying there is a bit more risk involved than just simply pressing the string, right? You might not be getting punished for it now, but the longer you're in your mind, the longer in your muscle memory that Demo Man remains a primary low to use, the sooner you're just gonna get slammed with and get punished for it later on, right? And Paul has a pretty solid set of lows, right? He's got back 4, he's got Corsical 4-3, he's got sidestep 3. Decent, right? And you need to start incorporating them more to help vary up your game plan. Holy shit, this video just got way longer than I anticipated. Let's finish up this round. Nice. I got him. GG's. Oh, I fucking love that. Oh, tragedy. Oh, I fucking love when that happens. Whiff punishing is so much fun. Alright, so like right here, you're just throwing away all your momentum, right? You're just like, alright, let me just do Death Fist. And it's like, again, he's just been stand blocking the entire time. Just do Corsical 4-3. It's not as flashy as the Death Fist, but if he's just going to keep stand blocking and you'll keep doing Corsical 4-3, it'll achieve very similar results. And online at this level, everybody hates lows. Nobody blocks low, then they eat like 2 or 3 of them, and all of a sudden they're flash ducking for the rest of the round, right? It's just look at the situations. One, the first situation, you use Death Fist. The opponent just blocks it, now you're just back to neutral. You haven't achieved anything, you haven't gained anything. You're still arguably safe. I'm pretty sure Brian has a solid Death Fist punish. I actually don't know. Can't remember. Whatever. But on the flip side, if you do Corsical 4-3, it's not like you're suddenly winning the round, but you got an easy 17 damage. You're neutral on hit, so you don't have to worry about dying for trying to do a move. And if they press any button, congratulations, you got an easy counter hit. If they start sidestepping because they think you're going to do Death Fist, congratulations, you're still going to hit them because Corsical 4-3 is near homing, basically. It tracks really well, which at this point in this game might as well mean it's homing, but whatever. So again, stuff to consider of like glorified reset to neutral with nothing gained when you do a death fist, or you get some chip damage in, you maintain safety, and you're able to continue playing the game, but now your opponent has a little bit less health to work with, and you just keep racking up that damage super safely. And then the moment your opponent starts to get frustrated or starts to make mistakes, you just clean them up with your easy punishment, right? Rip. Rip. Nice. That should have been a harder punish. Unfortunate. See, so you saw right there, right? Of like, you do back one too. Even this guy who hasn't shown any sort of matchup Paul knowledge at all, right? He's ducking back one too. Maybe it's because he was already committing. Maybe he was trying to do snake edge and he fucked up. That could also be a reason. But just see the danger of over committing to strings, right? Over committing to 3-2, over committing to back 1-2, right? Yeah. Okay. Rip. Don't want to play a little bit, I guess. Oh, rip. Okay, so yeah, it just, there's not much else for me to say that what hasn't already been said. Normally I'll do like a full-on breakdown of like, hey, here's a bunch of stuff you can improve on, but I think I kind of rambled on for too long, and I don't mean to overload you with information or anything. I hope that kind of illuminates like some ideas for you of like, hey, here are some situations where you start wanting doing X, Y, and Z, or here's where you want to start using X move for X situation, right? If any of that makes sense. All right. If you have any questions, let us know about like, hey, when should I aim to like use this move or that move, whatever. I think you might, if you're in the Discord, you've probably seen us like talk with You Can't See Me about like what to do against low ranks versus high ranks and stuff like that. And I've been thinking about that a lot of like, does the usual advice that we would give, or I would give and other people would give, does that really apply at low ranks? And I still believe it does to a degree, but obviously it's a whole different beast, right? And if you want more advice on that sort of idea about like, okay, all of this is good and all, and you'll try and play like the good fundamental Tekken, good old tried and true Paul fundamentals, sure, but you instead also want like, what can I do against these scrubs? Let us know, and we'll try and tailor that feedback a little bit. But that's a different conversation for a different day. Yeah, so if you have any questions, let us know, and hope some of this helped. All right, as long as it helps, I'm happy. Later, man.